Coming up on Tech News Today, why Lenovo wins. App makes any surface into a touchscreen. I want that app. And Facebook makes you miserable. We'll tell you why. It's science. Coming up next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, August 15th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT8. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
Sarah Lane has the day off. She's in Miami. Bienvenidos a Miami, Sarah Lane. But we're still going to talk about the top 10 stories of the day in the news feeds. Facebook wants to control another little piece of your life and your heart. Payments. All Things D reports Facebook confirmed they will test a service allowing anyone who has given credit card information to the company to use their Facebook account to make purchases on mobile apps. JackThreads is apparently the pilot partner.
Lenovo announced that its mobile device sales have overtaken its PC sales thanks to growth in China. Lenovo has a staggering 42% of the Chinese market in phones and reported its shipments of phones and tablets are up 41% year over year. Lenovo has been itching to get into the U.S. phone market. CEO Yang Yanqing told the Wall Street Journal that if a target or deal is consistent with Lenovo's strategy, we would take the opportunity. BlackBerry deal, anybody?
If the itching persists for more than 3 days, acquire BlackBerry. Ubi Interactive, part of Microsoft's Connect Accelerator program, has created an app that, combined with a projector and a Connect for Windows, can turn any surface into a virtual touchscreen. For $149, the software supports a 45-inch display size. The Pro version for $379 and the Business version for $799. Both can go up to 100 inches. The basic version supports 1 touch point, and the Business version supports 2 touch points, making it technically multi-touch. If you want 20 touch points, oh yeah, you're going to need to fork out $1,499 for the Enterprise edition. The app works with Windows 8, and Ubi is taking orders now at ubi-interactive.com.
Activision released multiplayer details about Call of Duty Ghosts. The multiplayer mode will allow players to customize their characters via the Create a Soldier feature. You'll be able to choose weapon loadouts and alter your character's appearance. You'll also be able to create up to 10 soldiers who can compete in a new mode called Squads, which features co-op, competitive, and solo options. Ghosts launches on November 5th.
The FBI has cracked encryption on 2 Western Digital MyBook Essential external hard drives in a case against Jeffrey Feldman of Wisconsin, accused of 3 counts of receiving and possessing child pornography. Feldman has declined to give up his passwords, causing a legal battle about self-incrimination. FBI agent Chadwick Elgersma said in court documents that 7 more drives remain encrypted. The feds did not reveal what kind of encryption was used on the drives.
Remember that Android operating system flaw that led to a whole bunch of wallet apps to be insecure?
Yep.
Yeah, well, Google has issued a patch that fixes that flaw in the pseudo-random number generator. The bug in the number generator made it possible to steal Bitcoins from Bitcoin wallets that generated keys from an Android app. There was at least 1 reported theft with $5,700 worth of Bitcoins stolen.
Apple will reportedly announce an iPhone September 10th. ABI Research and KGI Securities say Apple will include a fingerprint reader on the new iPhone. Apple bought a fingerprint sensor maker, Authentech, last year. Still don't believe any of these rumors? Well, the stock market does. Analysts believe a race for biometric devices will kick off with the announcement, and biometric companies are getting a boost. Bloomberg reports shares of Precise Biometrics have doubled since Apple's Authentech deal and added 12% to the stock price yesterday. Fingerprint Cards AB has risen 10 times since Authentech was purchased and surged 14% yesterday.
Who is the king of the streaming set-top boxes? Well, if you guessed Apple, you'd be dead wrong. According to new data from Parks Associates, the #1 streamer is Roku. 37% of the 10,000 people polled used a Roku box to stream media. 24% use an Apple TV. Parks Associates says that media streamers have a bright future with consumers because consumers are reluctant to replace big-ticket items like TVs solely for smart upgrades.
Wireless devices that don't need a battery? Scientists are on it. Researchers at the University of Washington have developed prototypes that use something called ambient backscatter to draw power from RF signals like radio and TV broadcasts. The device communicates by absorbing or reflecting the ambient signals. The device could be used for structural sensors or embedded things like your keys, so your couch could conceivably text you and let you know when your keys fell between the cushions.
That's the future I want to be living in.
Yeah, right.
Tired of going to the internet, downloading Skype, then installing it? So much work. Well, lazy people, your life's about to get way easier. Microsoft will be shipping Skype with Windows 8.1, and the app will be front and center on the updated OS. When you log into your Microsoft account, you'll be ready to Skype with all your Skypey people. Enjoy.
I'm doing it right now. This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace. You know we love Squarespace. I use it for my sites. It's so easy to use, so well designed, makes you look like a design genius. And we've wanted to see, well, what have you guys been doing with Squarespace? We asked folks to send a tweet. You can still do this, by the way, with a link to your Squarespace website and use the hashtag TNT Squarespace. And we'll take a look. We could choose your Squarespace site to mention in a future episode. Some of our audience members have already sent us a tweet with a link to some amazing sites. We've been looking at them. For instance, themusicservice.net, a great music review site. Blog templates, easy to navigate. Under that new music section, you can find embedded music videos. They play right in the player on your site with clips linked from YouTube and Vimeo. You can easily share posts of all your favorite social media, as they do, and the vinyl picture. Look at that. It's a great background for a music site. That looks so pro, and I bet it was super easy. So go check out themusicservice.net, and then go check out Squarespace. Squarespace has won numerous design awards from FWA, the Webbies, Forbes Awards with 3 Ws because it's World Wide Web. Get it? They win those stuff. They also won the Gold Stevie Award for outstanding customer service. Even their code is beautiful. If you're into code, go look at this code. The Squarespace takes pride in the beauty of its own back-end code as much as they do their front-end design. Start a trial with no credit card required and start building your website today. When you decide to sign up for Squarespace, make sure you use the offer code TNT8 and get 10% off to show your support for Tech News Today. Don't forget to send a tweet with that hashtag TNT Squarespace. We could be talking about your Squarespace site on a future episode. We thank Squarespace for their support of Tech News Today, and Squarespace is everything you need to create an exceptional website. So go do it. Joining us now to talk about the stories of the day, we're happy to have Rene Ritchie from imore.com back on the show. He is editor-in-chief there. How's it going, Rene?
It's going excellent, Tom. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm sorry we don't have a lot of Apple news, but you're a smart guy. You know more. This is your chance to show people who try to pigeonhole you, try to stereotype you.
I can stretch my wings. It'll be nice for a while not to talk about Apple.
That's good. We'll give you a little amuse-bouche between the Apple courses. Let's start with Lenovo and the story about their strong first quarter sales. IDC has Lenovo as the top PC vendor back in Q2, and their earnings report that Aya's mentioned in the news feed certainly bears that out. Phone and tablet shipments grew 41% year over year, 132% for smartphone users, and they want to bring phones to the U.S., as we heard. On that BlackBerry acquisition, it's interesting how they're not denying it. They're just sort of dancing around it. If a target or deal is consistent with Lenovo's strategy, we would take the opportunity. Not to get too much into the BlackBerry thing, because I think they can succeed whether they went for that or not. And I think that's probably why Lenovo is being so careful, is they're not discounting the possibility, but they're saying we don't really feel like we need it. Might be helpful to pick up. Rene, do you think Lenovo is an exception that proves the rule in the post-PC era, that they can be a top PC seller by also selling smartphones or tablets? Or could HP and Dell combine, kind of replicate their success?
I mean, I think Apple proved a while ago that at least the smart money, if you had foresight, was seeing mobile start to slowly eclipse desktop or traditional PC products, because what could be more personal than a device in your pocket or a device you held in your hand in your lap? And they transitioned quite smartly. You know, Microsoft struggled with it for a while, but Apple figured out you had to mainstream these products, make them easier to use, and not really worry about power users, but worry about empowering far more users. And Lenovo has always been savvy. Back when they bought the ThinkPad line, they showed that they really understood at least certain segments of their market, and they're moving into mobile. I don't think it's any surprise. I think the bigger surprise is what you said, that HP and Dell haven't been able to figure out this business themselves.
Yeah,
And I guess that is sort of the surprise, right? Is that you can sit back and try to rest on your laurels, or you can try to get into a business that you don't know that much about. And that's what it looks like happening with HP and Dell, whereas Lenovo is saying, no, we're learning about this business and we're going to do it well.
Yeah, but
You can cancel WebOS.
HP, mentioning WebOS, they might not have been really great with the ideas of getting to the phone market, so they try to buy their way in by buying Palm, completely screw that up by switching CEOs and like, oh, we're not going to care about this anymore. You had that situation. Also, HP like squandered a lead, and so did Dell. Don't forget, those companies had really good PDA devices that people were using. The Dell Axum was really cool. The HP iPAQs, those were really neat. All of these things were ahead of their time and actually somewhat leaders with Windows CE and things like that. The fact they couldn't transition from this PDA into a phone, I find that a bit more curious, because it seems like if something was PC-like, they were good at it, because Windows CE on those things kind of underpowered compared to today's things, but very, very much like the familiar desktop you're used to. When they had to move into this touchscreen world, the smartphone world after Apple, that seems like where these companies are falling apart. I don't know what Lenovo is doing right, other than they try out so many different form factors. Maybe they have the ability to have a mindset that goes, okay, it works on the tablet, we can make it a phone, we can do this. Just don't know if they're going to get to the U.S. market, though.
That is the big question.
I had an HP Jornada. I love that device, and I think you're absolutely right. But I think one of the challenges, and people like Ben Bajarin explain this much better than I do, is that it's really hard to compete when you don't control your own software, because the way you compete is with differentiators like screen size or price, and all of those are sort of artificial, and it's hard to always be the dominant person, because someone who has an iPhone is going to want to have iOS going forward. Someone who has a cheaper phone will want the next cheapest phone, which might not be yours, or the next biggest phone, which might not be yours. So it's a much tougher market for them to crack.
Unless you get a Windows situation, right? I mean, it was fine to sell PCs when you didn't control your own software because all of them were Windows. And so it was a level playing field, and you could differentiate on service and support and features of your computers. But now, because we don't have a level playing field for operating system, it seems like that has tilted back the way of providing that operating system support. Or I was reading an interesting article today about Xiaomi. We often hear them called the Apple of China, but Xiaomi says we're not the Apple of China. We're actually more like Amazon, because they subsidize the phones directly to the audience because they then sell them services. It's making an ecosystem around it that's helping them. So I guess the way I'm thinking here is there are multiple ways to success in the smartphone market. What works in China may not work in the United States because of that for Lenovo. It'll be interesting to see what approach they take. All right, let's talk about that Connect app that can turn my wall over there into a touchscreen. This is pretty awesome.
Yeah, this is awesome. So as you mentioned in the news fuse, it's an app that turns any surface into a touchscrreen. It used to be in beta. Now it's finally available for pre-sale at Ubi-Interactive, I believe it is. We'll have a link at Twit. The Ubi app is for Windows 8 only. You combine it with a Connect for Windows and a projector, and it lets you manipulate projected images. Now, the Connect tracks your movements, and it should operate the same as you've been used to with your touchscreen phones and tablets. There's multi-touch and gesture support depending on what model you get. 4 different packages from Ubi. You got Basic, which costs $150. You get 1 point of input, supports images up to 45 inches. Business version allows 2 inputs, $800, but Business and higher can provide 100-inch support. That's a pretty big screen. Enterprise gets you 20 points, so if you want to put 2 people's hands on there, you could. 20 points of input, $1,500. I've been staring at this technology since this demo that Bill Gates did way back in CES. I think it was 2002. He did this awesome demo with a kitchen. He was like, oh, look, I'll project the windows onto my kitchen counter. He was manipulating things. I've been psyched about this for about apparently 11 years. I was just realizing that this morning. Renee, are you actually excited about this Ubi software?
Yeah, I mean, I'm exactly like you. I watched all of those Bill Gates' CES presentations and always wondered, will this year be the year? Or you watch Minority Report. But I think there's several challenges, and it's the same sort of challenges that face natural language. I think gestures are part of that next generation interface cycle. And that's, it's not clear if right now we're the Apple One and the Lisa more than the Apple II and the Mac. We're sort of at the experimental stage because we've gotten used to multi-touch products that are one-to-one finger tracking. You touch something, it becomes a physical object and it moves. And whenever that is not close to perfect, whenever there's latency or delay or just general jankiness, it shatters that illusion. And I think with technologies like this and the Leap Motion, they're getting really close, but until they nail that sort of instant feedback cycle on it, it's always going to be one of these Kickstarter sort of projects.
And $149 for something, I mean, not to minimize this, but $149 for something that only has one input, that means no pinch to zoom, nothing like that, because you can't use 2 points. You kind of have to get the $800 one to make this be extremely useful.
Yeah, you're right. Because I was thinking about 1 point, and I'm like, that's like a cursor on your laptop or your desktop.
Yeah,
so you're used to
drag
that.
things around. It's
Right.
not useless. Yeah.
Right. But the thing is, though, you probably could get more functionality out of using a projector and a wireless mouse. I guess you don't need to have actually tap the surface of your wall or something like that. I think that price point is that first thing where you look at it. It's an attractive number. You're like $150. Oh, I can do this. A 45-inch screen, 1 point. But then your eye starts moving over to the right because the pre-order page has all of the tiers kind of listed left to right, and you'll be like, oh, I want more points. I want to be able to do this. Like I know I want this. I have no reason to spend this much money for this because you still need to connect. You still need a Windows 8 PC. You still need a projector, and that's how this is going to work. But I really want to have a giant notification board up in my house that I can manipulate. It's kind of the nerdy house I've always wanted.
Well, and I think this is meant for businesses. That's why it's such a confliction when you're like us and looking at it like, oh, I would like to have that on my wall, but you don't really need it on your wall. Whereas a business which already has Windows 8 machines, already has projectors, they probably have to buy the Connect for Windows. That's what, $149, I think, something around there.
That's $250.
That's $250. Even then, even at $250, it's cheap for a business to put this in a conference room. Is it worth $800 at that point, or $1,050, or even up to $1,500 for the 20-point version? Not sure if your productivity return is going to outweigh that investment. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, is it going to? I think nailed it when he said, is that better than a mouse? Is that better than a trackpad on a computer controlling it? And I think these early experiences aren't going to be. People will buy them as early adapters, and they'll try to move it, and it won't work the way they imagine touch. Because people have trained now on multi-touch devices and on multi-touch trackpads, and it's not going to work like that, and it'll be more frustrating than it will be cool.
And Leap Motion would give you almost the same effect, right? You could have a projector projecting a screen and use the Leap Motion to control it, and then you don't have to go stand by it. Maybe that's a better solution anyway.
You got to stand by the Leap Motion because I think it has like a little window of maybe a foot.
Yeah, but you don't have to go stand by the wall. That's what I'm saying.
I like
you can
take a Leap Motion bracelet.
I can lean on the wall and I can have that 1 point input by accident. There you go. It's like, oh,
you can move the Leap Motion. You can't move the wall very easily.
Okay, good point, Tom Merritt.
Have you guys been using Facebook?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
No. So you're probably pretty happy then. Facebook makes you miserable. Study done by Ethan Cross and his team, social psychologists at the University of Michigan, and published in PLOS One, says that they surveyed 82 young adults, median age of 19 or so, with Facebook accounts, got them to reply to text messages 5 times a day for 2 weeks, answering questions about their subjective mood and whether they had been using Facebook or not. Here's from the paper. Our results indicate that Facebook use predicts negative shifts on both variables over time, and they're referring to mood and loneliness. The more people used Facebook at one time point, the worse they felt the next time we text messaged them. The more they used Facebook over 2 weeks, the more their life satisfaction levels declined over time. And they controlled for, well, maybe people feel bad and then turn to Facebook. When they controlled for that, there was still a negative effect of Facebook. Using Facebook brought people down. Researchers said that they found no evidence that people used Facebook when they felt unhappy already. Should we all cheer up by not using Facebook?
I don't think it's that simple. I mean, we've talked about this on Zen and Tech previously, and it's sort of self-selecting because people tend to share the best moments of their lives on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and when you're looking at that, you sort of lose touch with reality, and you think that everyone has far more interesting lives than you do. Everyone is suddenly the cool kid at school who goes to all the parties you don't get invited to, and that does increase feelings of loneliness and feelings of lack of satisfaction. But that's a perceptive and not a real-based thing. And I think we gave people all these tools, and social migrated very quickly from the MySpaces to the Facebooks to Twitter to Google Plus to all these different things. But they're not old enough that we've learned how to actually associate them with our lives. So they've created exactly what you mentioned, those sort of false perceptions.
Well, I think Renee's totally right. So what has to happen is that people need to share their misery on Facebook.
Yes.
They're just simply showing the amazing photographs that they have, not the crappy images of that didn't get done right. They're showing their beautiful vacations, not their monotonous cubicles. What we need to see on these social networks to make everyone happier is more misery. So that's the thing. It's not necessarily about not sharing and avoiding this. We need to share more of our misery together.
You're going to start a campaign for bad news book or something like
social
that.
Networks.
Yeah. I think Renee totally nailed it when you said this isn't a mature situation. And right now, that's how we're using it. It may not be the way we use it forever. It may change, just like television was used quite differently in the 50s than it's used now. And there were all these fears about how it was affecting children, how it was affecting our daily lives and our ability to communicate with people, some of which could be shown to be actual effects. And we started to learn how to use the tool. I think we'll start to learn how to use the tool of social networking. I'd be interested if other social networks have the same effect or if it's particular to Facebook. If somebody does this same study, the same methodology on Twitter, do you see the same effect, or do people communicate differently on Twitter? And therefore, you don't have that same effect. It's really interesting stuff, though.
Filled with humble brags, Tom. Just humble brag after humble brag.
Yeah, that's my Facebook feed. Actually, I don't even post to Facebook. I just have my Twitter posts go over there. So I use
it as a way to stop my relatives from feeling like they have to call me to find out what's going on. They can just sort of passively observe, and it kind of keeps us nicely fenced.
I tried that. Nobody cared. They didn't read Facebook.
That's another one that's coming out.
Build fences, not friends. Let's talk about eBay. My Gadgets. This is kind of like GDGT, except with eBay.
Yeah, so eBay launched a new service, and it's called My Gadgets. It's a private inventory of all the gadgets you've bought. Now, you have to add each item you own to this inventory. If you bought the item on eBay, they'll automatically be part of a list. Now, eBay will automatically put prices on each of your items and give you a running total of your gadgets. So you can even see price trends if you want to see what's going on with your iPhone. Now, this inventory isn't public or anything until you want to sell an item. Renee, does it seem like a good idea for consumers? Or is this going to be a whole bunch of people who are tracking their stuff and then realizing, hey, I can actually sell this and create a whole bunch of sellers?
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting in general to see this whole market for secondhand devices explode. It's gotten to the extent that the carriers want a piece of it. And, if they're circling it like sharks around a chum field, it's got to be very interesting. And you did see GGT. I give my gadgets away. When I get a new phone, I usually give whatever the second generation phone is away to family members. But for a lot of people, there's a lot of gadgets, a lot of things that they want to buy. And it's not realistic to think that everybody can afford everything all of the time. So services like Gazelle, like eBay, I think will help people who are afflicted with a lot of big tech love, get their fixes, but also manage to afford them more easily.
It might encourage me to sell something on eBay if I find it useful to go to the trouble to take pictures of my device and log them with My Gadgets, because then it becomes a lot easier when I determine to sell it. I don't have to say, oh my God, I have to sit down and document all this and worry about, I don't want to deal with all of that. So I think it's really smart on eBay. I don't know, Ayaz, if they're convincing me to go to the trouble in the first place. I already have a profile on GDGT. Do I need to go? Why do I feel like I need to go to eBay, except for maybe that savings down the road and selling stuff?
Yeah, I thought one of the interesting features of this My Gadgets feature is that it would automatically populate things you bought on eBay. So at least you'd have a starting point. So that way you're like, oh, I can add one or two things. Maybe that's not so much work. I think in their demo video, they don't show you exactly how it works, but you're supposed to be able to just kind of type in a few letters, and then it'll autofill. So let's say I'm selling a Sony Xperia Z or something. I have one of those. It should be filling it in and give me that information. So if it does, I guess it's actually how it functions. If it functions really well, it's easy. Or if you could like scan a UPC or something like that, I think people would be willing to do it. But the fact that the first things it populates is eBay. If Amazon did this, I would have this huge inventory and go, oh my gosh, I have bought way too much stuff on Amazon, first of all. And then I would be able to see a seller's market. But I do think it's going to get some casual people who like to keep the track of their things. They might be more willing to become sellers on eBay because to me, eBay's matured to the point where you don't think of it as the auction house. You just think of it as a way to sell your stuff. You can buy it now, for the most part, as taken over from auctions. So if it can get more people using eBay, it's just better for the company in general.
What I don't understand is how come they were smart enough to get an Adam Lissagore video, but not smart enough to outbid AOL for GDGT?
Yeah, right? That would have been perfect for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe GDG, I don't know if GDGT wanted to be part of eBay. Maybe that would have been part of that decision. I don't know. But yeah, I have to agree. As you totally changed my opinion about this when you said if Amazon did it, because I got really excited. I would absolutely be over the moon for this for Amazon, because that's where I buy most of my stuff.
Yeah.
So if they automatically create that inventory for me and then make it easier to sell it, that's where I live. So I guess if you live on eBay, if you do a lot of shopping on eBay, this is going to make you just as excited. I tried to buy some T-shirts on eBay, like just some goofy T-shirts, and I got outbid in the last, 30 minutes. I was actually doing bidding, not buy it now, and that's why I just never buy anything on eBay. It's too much work, unless you do the buy it now. Then it doesn't end up saving you any money. We mentioned briefly yesterday the furious rage about the stories that said Google says email users have no expectation of privacy. These stories were stoked by a press release from Consumer Watchdog regarding a case that Google is fighting, where it's a class action lawsuit actually against Google, accusing them of violating wiretapping laws by scanning email at the server level and putting ads next to email. Nilay Patel on The Verge and Mike Masnick on Tech Dirt have some excellent explanations of what's going on with these lawsuits. And since the rage continued today, I figured we'd talk about it a little more, since we didn't have a discussion story particularly about it yesterday. In their filing in June, it's a huge filing. It's 700 pages or something. Google says at one point, a person has no legitimate expectation of privacy in information he voluntarily turns over to third parties. And they use a precedent, Smith versus Maryland from 1979, which was a case where a criminal tried to say, the phone company created a pen register to know who I called, and that's against the law. They shouldn't have done that. And the courts found, no, you don't have an expectation of privacy when you use a phone service. They have to be able to record that kind of information to provide the phone service. Google is using that same thing. Patel points out that the quote refers to non-Gmail users in Google's filing who send email to Gmail users. Gmail users are covered by Google's unified privacy policy. So this doesn't even refer to Gmail users. And non-Gmail users who send emails to Gmail recipients must expect that their emails will be subjected to Google's normal processes as the email provider for their intended recipients. In other words, how could Google pass the email to the proper person if they didn't process it at the server level and send it along? And Mike Masnick at TechDirk says the real issue here will be fighting off the government in the future, because the government might use Smith versus Maryland, that same precedent, and cite Google's own use of it in defense if Google tries to say, well, the government doesn't have the right to see what's going on with our people. So after all of these facts, Renee, are you angry at Google over this?
No, I mean, I'm a massive Google user, and when I signed on with Google, I agreed that they would give me fantastic services, and I would surrender all of my data unto them. And that's an adult, it's personal responsibility. I made that choice. If I email someone, it's confusing for people who aren't familiar with the internet, who don't understand how everything works, and they might say, "Oh, I didn't know just by mailing Gmail. I didn't even know that Google owned Gmail." But I think anyone using electronic transmissions, I think when we went digital, to a large extent, privacy probably died. And that's not a very comfortable thing to think about. But when you see things like Prism, or you see things like how Google reads mail, I think it's safe to assume that if you put something online, it's going to be read by people. So I understand the rage. I understand people being apprehensive about it. I understand why Nilay gets so angry at people on Twitter when they misunderstand it. But I think in general, this kind of thing will fade as it becomes the new normal.
And a lot of people, one person in the chat room is like, well, they should just look at the headers, not the email. How are they going to then display it for you? If the server, remember, this isn't people. This isn't like a copy being given to someone. The server is looking at the message, and then if it matches keywords, it shows up an ad, but it doesn't log it other than putting it in your inbox. And so I think that's what's confusing to people. They're like, well, this has been going on for years since Google first put ads into Gmail, and people get confused. They imagine that it's Google somehow logging or reading your emails when it's a server that scans it, looks for a match, puts up an ad, and forgets about it. And there's an argument about whether you trust that that's all Google is doing or not, but that's a different argument. Ayaz, are you angry?
No, not about this.
At Google, anyway.
Am I angry? I don't know. Not today. But when it comes to the Google, to Google actually scanning your mails, I think part of this might be stoked by. Remember that Microsoft campaign, the Gmail man who'd come by and read all your stuff. I think maybe that had an effect on people to the point where they thought that's actually how it works. Like there's somebody actually reading their mail and going, oh, yes, that's great. And they're actually tracking it. I believe if Google doesn't process the mail, looks through it, spam filters don't work, a ton of things don't work. So the idea that you'd be like, oh, I'm sending it to Gmail, so they shouldn't be able to see it. It sounds like a great argument if you're maybe if you're full of scams or you like to send spam. That's great, because then if Google's not paying attention, then you can actually just flood people's inboxes. So they have to read this stuff, or you're going to get just a ton of crap, and then you have Gmail being a terrible product. So I don't even know how that would work.
Well, and I think read is one of the words that causes confusion, because that brings up the image of, again, of somebody reading your email, that they're scanning the email, which you may say, well, yeah, that's a distinction without a difference. But it's not a person, again, it's a server. And your server cannot bring you your email without scanning it. They cannot give you the letters that need to show up on, unless you're encrypting it and decrypting it on your own end. That's a totally different matter.
And even then,
Jason,
it's leaky because all the metadata is there anyway.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I was curious if Jason was angry.
No, not really.
Jason's a mellow guy. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's kind of like a no duh moment to me. It's not outside of what I would have expected anyway. So no, I'm not angry.
I would say this is no reason not to continue to monitor what's going on. Mm-hmm. It's no reason not to consider, maybe if I want to avoid any question, I want to get an email provider that I host myself on a web host. Look into all that stuff. That's great. Look into PGP. But I don't think this is the greatest example of the problem.
Right.
There are probably better examles out there.
Let's finish probably a good indication that we need education, because people just don't understand how the systems work.
No, that's a very good point. Let's finish off with Google blocking, really, the new YouTube Windows Phone app?
Okay, so this broke during the show. I saw it pop up on Twitter. It says Microsoft. So Microsoft, they just released a YouTube app, and it's now being blocked by Google. Google says the app is blocked for violating terms of use. There's a quote for this. Microsoft has not made the browser upgrades necessary to enable a fully featured YouTube experience, and has instead re-released a YouTube app that violates our terms of service. This is what Google says. The Verge says that Google simply revoked the API key Microsoft was trying to use. The YouTube app returned to Windows Phone after it was gone for 3 months, because they've been doing this squabble for a while. Google wouldn't release a YouTube app for Windows Phone. Microsoft made one. Google didn't like the way it operated, so they broke it effectively. Then Microsoft came back with a new YouTube app, which works, I think, since a couple of days ago. That has since been broken again. Microsoft says it's working on resolving the issue with its updated YouTube app. Quote, Google is blocking our updated YouTube app for Windows Phone. We are working with them to resolve the issue, which I could have sworn they said the first time they broke the application. Renee, what the heck's going on here? Can Google and Microsoft just figure out how to get this stupid app running? It's YouTube for the... I'm going to get very angry here.
Bleep, bleep, bleep.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, well, no, I think it's important to remember a couple things. Google is a for-profit company, and like all for-profit companies, they make business decisions. I mean, they do a lot of talk about being open and being egalitarian and being cross-platform, but Google hasn't historically supported Windows Phone or BlackBerry or other systems besides Apple's and their own, or Microsoft's on the desktop very well at all. And they absolutely don't have to, but the expectation for most people is that those services will be everywhere. And traditionally, Apple and Google have come to blows over both Maps and YouTube when Google wanted to start inserting ads into them and Apple didn't. And that was a big part of the reason why we now have separate Google apps for Maps and YouTube on iOS. And iOS is such a big platform, Google has to bend over backwards. Most of their money still comes from iOS users. That is absolutely not the case on Windows Phone. It is probably more of an annoyance than anything else for them. And I think that's highlighted by the fact that it's third-party apps or Microsoft-made apps that have to do all the heavy lifting on this. So Google probably makes enough money off Apple. They really want Apple to do well. They probably want to watch Microsoft die. So I don't think that they're going to go out of their way to help them at all, and I don't think they care enough about the users to really do it. So I think this will go back and forth forever at this point.
My wife works for YouTube, so I should disclose that, but I don't have any insight through that connection to this. I feel like Google just constantly drags their feet in adding YouTube to things unless they're hugely popular. Yeah. I mean, we don't have a YouTube app for Roku, and we just heard in the news views that's the most popular set-top box. Why? Why is there no YouTube? Why do they resist that? It just seems like a weird problem. And again, here, like, why wouldn't they be cooperative with Windows Phone, which, granted, it's not gargantuan, but it's the number 3 platform now and growing. You would think you would want people to watch your videos. And that's where I think the key is, because what YouTube wants is not people to watch the videos. They want people to watch the ads that go with the videos.
Yes.
And possibly these implementations don't deliver the ads in the way that Google thinks is going to maximize the value for them.
I think the first version of the YouTube app had a problem with ads, or I think it did some like offline viewing options and downloading options that Google was not cool with at all. So that was a good reason to get rid of it. But the fact that they claim to be working together in the past to try to fix this situation, to have this application on Windows Phone. I mean, this is Microsoft and Google. I'm really just curious about why they can't just talk and make the app either work or not work. It's simple. It's not like Microsoft's really asking Google to build them an app. They just want Google to approve an app that functions with YouTube. That's all it is, because Microsoft is the one actually doing the work. So why Microsoft can't figure out the terms of service, or Google can't communicate it, I don't know what's going on there, other than they could just effectively be like being children right now, just saying, you mess with us with our Android patents all the time, so we're going to mess with you with the YouTube app.
Yeah, we don't like the fact that HTC gives you $5 for every Android phone they sell.
Yeah,
so we're pissed. I generally think we overestimate the times that's the case, because we want to personalize these sort of things, but it's not impossible. That could be behind it. It could be an element behind the non-cooperation for sure. Let's move on to the randomizer. We have 2 things in the randomizer straw poll today. One was Microsoft remaking Blake 7 for the Xbox. That was supposed to be on Sci-Fi Network. Apparently, it's going to come to the Xbox now. That's kind of crazy, but that only got 36% of the vote. Plants vs. Zombies 2 has won the straw poll because it's out today on iOS. I actually played a couple levels this morning, and let me tell you, it's just as fun as I remembered. And you're going in a time machine, by the way. You're going to be going to ancient Egypt, then the Old West. It's pretty darn fun. If you like Plants vs. Zombies 1, you're probably going to love this one too. You guys excited?
No.
No.
I'm excited. I want to play this. I can't wait. It's been a while since I played part 1, but
EA bought them like they bought Real Racing, and they've changed them from, fairly straightforward, you buy the app, you play the game, to freemium, free-to-play games where you buy the app, you pay a little bit for free, and then either your impatience or your ego gets the better of you. You start giving them vast sums of money. So it's not as simple a game or a transaction or a relationship as it used to be. We've been playing it for a while because I was out in Australia for a while, and it's fun, but the freemium model does get annoying.
Yeah, I told somebody in the chat room earlier, I was like, well, as long as I don't end up spending more than $10, which is what I spent for the original Plants vs. Zombies iPad version, I guess it's okay. And I created a login for it. Does that mean that if I play it on another device, I can carry over my progress? Because that was always a problem playing on 2 different platforms. I don't know if it works that way or not.
I haven't tried that.
Yeah, I'm going to try that later on today. Let's see what's on the calendar. Sarah? Oh, you're not here, Sarah. You're in Miami. App.net had their 1-year anniversary today. Anyone still using App.net?
no,
The
crickets.
Twitter replacement? I actually logged into my account this morning in celebration, and wow, of all the people I was following, and last time I looked, there were a bunch of developers in there having great conversations. It just seemed like reposts. There just didn't seem to be much going on there. At least not today.
I use it.
I don't know. Yeah,
I
Do you
still use it. It's definitely nerdy, but I think the thing about app.net is that it originally started as a Twitter analog. But if you look at what they did with their messaging platform, their files API, and some of the new stuff they're working on, they're going to end up being just an infrastructure play. There's a ton of iOS apps now that you would never like Whisper for messaging or Oh Hi for journaling that you'd never know run on app.net, except that you log in using app.net, and then they just use it as an infrastructure. And I think that's where it'll be interesting in a year or two from now.
In the continuing fight between Carl Icahn and Dell to bring Dell private, Dell has moved their second quarter earnings results to today, Thursday, so they should be out this afternoon after the market close. Samsung's Ativas Neo arrives tomorrow, Friday, August 16th. Also arriving tomorrow, the Ashton Kutcher vehicle Jobs will finally hit U.S. theaters. Let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
It's actually a movie. If a vehicle hits a theater, run. Run away.
Yeah, that's scary.
I got an email from George, AT&T crew. You're talking about Samsung's contest to find uses for flexible displays. There are several medical uses people have already thought of. The G-Tone watch to monitor blood sugars and the Gluco M wristband, which wants to do something similar. And Apple recently hired some experts from medical sensor technologies, which may hint that they may include some of this in their upcoming wrist technology. Does Samsung want to try to outdo Apple in this arena by asking the public? Well, we are certainly not experts here. If I were Samsung, I would just copy Apple's ideas. Oh, wait. They already have.
They tried that, George. Yeah. No, good find, George. And I think that kind of further goes to show that what Samsung's doing here is probably just marketing. They may get some great ideas out of this, and they may get some data about which ideas are more popular, which might be the most helpful thing. But maybe they're not confused. There's going to be a watch. That's the rumor, is that September 4th announcement from Samsung is going to be a watch.
Galaxy Gear.
All right, that is it for this episode of Tech News Today. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Renee Ritchie, for joining us. What's going on over there at imore.com?
We're just heads down waiting for the September 10th Apple event, waiting for the new phones, iOS 7, all of that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're already planning for that. Yeah, everybody knows why Apple is holding off on the invite. I don't know, but we'll get it any day. Don't forget, you can submit stories at our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. In fact, I think one of my stories here was submitted. Yeah, SciSpud submitted the press suckered by anti-Google Group's bogus claim. That was the Mike Masnick article from TechDirt. So thank you for that, and thank you for all the folks who do our subreddit at technewstoday.reddit.com. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, and you can give us a call, leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT-SHOW. Darren Kitchen and Len Peralta join us tomorrow. Len will be illustrating again. We'll see you then.